Welcome back. President Trump is calling for Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell to cut interest rates after Powell left rates unchanged again on Wednesday. The president has been calling him too late Powell. Trump writes this: we should be 2.5 points lower and save billions on all of Biden's short-term debt. We have low inflation. Federal Housing FHFA Director Bill Pulte is taking it one step further. He is calling on Powell to resign. Joining me now is the man himself. Bill Pulte is here. Bill, thanks very much for joining me. And you write on X, Powell is a main reason for the housing supply crisis in the country. By improperly keeping interest rates high, Jerome Powell is trapping homeowners in low-rate mortgages and choking off existing home sales, directly fueling the housing supply crisis. He must lower rates. Bill, what do you want to see happen here?
Well, Biden had this crazy inflation, and President Trump has come in and crushed inflation, Maria.
Right.
He still has interest rates way too high, and they're not reflective of the great work that President Trump has done. So Fed Chair Jay Powell, he either needs to lower the rates or he needs to resign.
Well, I mean, his term is up next year. So, you know, we've all talked about who would replace him should President Trump say what he suggested, that he's not going to reappoint him. But in terms of the rates, my question is, do you believe Jay Powell is thinking about debt and deficits? I mean, this is what I asked Nick Timmeros yesterday. It doesn't seem that that's a priority for him, because obviously the fact that rates are where they are has us paying more for holding that debt, interest on the debt. $1 trillion, we're spending more on the interest on the debt than we are on spending on defense.
That's right. You know, and he talks all the time. He says, oh, we're a data-driven approach. We're a data-driven approach. Well, what data is he looking at to keep up rates? He's looking at no data. He's looking at his own hate, in my opinion, for President Trump, which is disgusting, is not representative of a Fed chair. There's so much money at stake, Maria. Americans are being hurt by this man. He needs to resign. OK, we have inflation that is at 2% thanks to President Trump. He's holding these rates, the Fed fund rates, at 4%. People's mortgage affordability has been crushed in the last 4 years. People have to pay double what they had to pay compared to President Trump's first term in order to buy a home. He needs to lower rates, or he needs to step down, and he needs to do it now, not before the end of his term.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when you look at mortgage rates right now, the 30-year fixed rate right now is sitting at 6.8%. That is a huge difference than where it was just a couple of years ago. In late May, the president announced that he wants to take Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac public, but will ensure that the government will keep its guarantees as he oversees the process. Bill, you say Fannie and Freddie are stronger than ever before due to President Trump's actions. Would that impact rates at all? And what's your take in terms of getting mortgage rates down to open up the housing market for people?
Well, we're going to make sure mortgage rates don't go up. We're going to make sure they go down. But that's right. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are in better shape than ever before. Nobody, frankly, cared about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac from a president level until President Trump showed up. I mean, he finds money everywhere, this president. He finds money everywhere. And you say to yourself, why didn't any other president think of this stuff? Maria, I showed up on the job. Nobody was working in these buildings. You saw the videos. It was like a ghost town. All of a sudden, we ordered everybody back to work. People are happy to be working in these buildings again, and they are real, thriving companies. We're going to run them as businesses, and no, it's absolute nonsense. Anything that we're going to do is going to be driving down rates, driving down costs for the American consumers. And it's about time some president cared about the mortgage market, and thank God we have a president that finally does.
So when do you expect these to be 100%? And is that the goal of public concerns as opposed to the big stake the government has?
Well, we're studying all options. As President Trump, I would refer you to his tweet. As President Trump said, he will be keeping control. And there's nobody better to run these companies, frankly, than him. He's a real estate developer. He's a president. He understands interest rates. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are going to be in his control. And who knows what he decides to do. It'll be our job to study it. We're studying it. But ultimately, this will be a presidential decision. And I think President Trump is the perfect guy to make that decision.
And you think that if and when Powell starts cutting rates, that will have an impact on mortgage rates as well?
Absolutely. Look at what happened with mortgage rates over the last 4 years. You had inflation rip and mortgage rates rip through the ceiling. They ripped so quick that nobody wants to get out of these low interest loans that they have on their homes. And it's hurting right now. It's hurting Americans right now. Nobody wants to sell their existing homes. So we need to get that inventory churning in this country again, Maria. And I believe Jay Powell is probably one of, if not the biggest reason for the housing supply crisis that we have in this country.
Have you heard back from Powell's office after your calls for him to resign?
Well, I don't want to talk about specific things. I did see him a couple of weeks ago. He didn't seem too happy with me. But look, I don't care. I'm in the business of helping Americans. I work for President Trump. President Trump is laser focused. I've heard him say it before. We are not focused on what's the political thing to do. We are focused on what's the right thing to do for the American people. The right thing for the American people is to lower these interest rates. They need to come down, or Jay Powell needs to resign immediately.
All right, let me switch gears. I want to get the latest on the criminal investigation into New York Attorney General Letitia James. The Department of Justice opening a probe into her real estate dealings last month after you made a criminal referral over her alleged mortgage fraud. Now, you said what? She allegedly said her father was her husband. She wrote that her father was her husband on a form. What exactly happened?
Well, I don't really want to talk about a specific criminal subject's defenses and what we've done. Obviously, the referral speaks for itself. However, Ms. James did say the other day that her father was listed as her husband on a mortgage application. She did it on a podcast, which I was very surprised that she said that. Having said that, we had proof of that, and we put that in our referral. I would refer you to our referral, and I would refer you to the Department of Justice for where that stands. But one thing I can tell you, Maria, is there is no room for fraud in President Trump's America, and there is no room for fraud in President Trump's mortgage market. And we are going to do everything we can. We don't care whether you're a politician, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're some kind of rich person. If you commit mortgage fraud in this country, we are going to come after you. And Ms. James is no exception. It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican. If you commit fraud, we are going to come after you. And it's very ironic to me, Maria, that people went after the president, who's never done a dang thing wrong in his entire life in terms of the law. It's totally crazy. This guy's been checked out 8 ways to Sunday. And all of a sudden, many of these people may have been doing the same thing that they were accusing him of. So we'll see what happens. But I would refer you to my letter, and I would refer you to the DOJ as it relates to that specific example.
Yeah, I don't think there's been more investigations on one person than President Trump.
It's quite amazing.
The last couple of years. It's quite amazing. Bill, thank you. We'll be watching your work. We appreciate your time this morning.